What would you do if the person you loved most was hanging unconscious from a warehouse ceiling, and you had exactly 60 seconds before the building exploded? That's the question that changed everything for me. But let me back up, because this story is about how love can bloom in the most unexpected places, how it can be tested by the cruelest circumstances, and how sometimes the person you least expect to save you becomes your greatest hero. My name is Alexander Stone, and 6 months ago, I thought I had everything figured out. I was the CEO of Stone Industries, worth about $12 billion on paper. And I lived in a world where people said yes to everything I wanted. My penthouse overlooked the city like a kingdom I'd built with my own hands. I had power, influence, and enough money to buy small countries. But I was dying. Not literally. Well, maybe literally. The doctors at Manhattan Presbyterian had been very clear about my condition. A rare heart defect that had gone undiagnosed for years was finally catching up with me. Without surgery, I had maybe 6 months. With surgery, I had a 50-50 chance of making it through the procedure. "Mr. Stone," the cardiologist had said, his voice carrying that practiced sympathy they teach in medical school. "You need to understand the risks. This isn't a simple operation. We'll need to completely reconstruct your left ventricle." I'd nodded, signed the papers, and scheduled the surgery like it was just another business meeting. Death was just another negotiation, right? Another problem to solve with money and determination. That's when I met her. Isabella Martinez was not supposed to be working the cardiac unit that Tuesday morning. She was covering for a colleague who'd called in sick, which meant she was the nurse who drew my blood for preoperative testing. I was sitting in the hospital bed, scrolling through emails about a merger that would make me another $100 million, when she walked in. "Good morning, Mr. Stone. I'm Bella, and I'll be taking care of you today." I looked up, ready to give her the polite but distant acknowledgement I gave all hospital staff, and the words died in my throat. She wasn't beautiful in the magazine cover way I was used to. She was something else entirely. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she wore no makeup except for a touch of lip balm. But her eyes were the kind of brown that looked like they held entire stories. And when she smiled, it reached all the way to those eyes in a way that made my chest tighten, and not because of the heart condition. "You seem nervous," she said, setting down her supplies and really looking at me. Not at my expensive watch or the designer clothes hanging in the closet, but at me. "I don't get nervous," I replied automatically. She raised an eyebrow, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Everyone gets nervous before surgery. It's human." Human. When was the last time someone had called me human? "I've read your file," she continued, rolling up my sleeve with gentle, efficient movements. "This is a big surgery, but Dr. Morrison is the best cardiac surgeon on the East Coast. You're in good hands." "I know the statistics," I said, trying to sound businesslike. Statistics are just numbers, Mr. Stone. They don't account for stubbornness, and something tells me you're very stubborn. The needle slipped into my vein so smoothly I barely felt it. But I felt everything else. The warmth of her hand on my arm. The way she hummed softly under her breath while she worked. How she treated me like I was just another person instead of Alexander Stone, billionaire. "Are you always this chatty with patients?" I asked. "Only the ones who look like they're calculating hostile takeovers in their heads while I'm trying to draw their blood." I actually laughed. When was the last time I'd laughed in a hospital room? "There," she said, pressing a small bandage over the puncture site. "All done. Your surgery isn't until Thursday, so you've got 2 days to work on that stubbornness." She was almost to the door when I called out, "Bella?" She turned back, and I realized I had no idea what I wanted to say. "Thank you." Her smile could have powered the entire hospital. "See you tomorrow, Mr. Stone, huh?" That night, lying in my penthouse, I couldn't stop thinking about her. Not in the way I usually thought about women, as accessories or distractions or business arrangements. Thought about the way she'd touched my arm, gentle but sure, the way she'd made me feel like a person instead of a portfolio. I showed up for my pre-surgery appointments early the next 2 days, hoping to see her. And she was there, always with that same warm smile, always treating me like Alexander instead of Mr. Stone. She told me about her work, how she'd been a nurse for 8 years, how she'd gotten into cardiac care because her father had died of a heart attack when she was 19. "I couldn't save him," she said quietly, adjusting my IV line. "But maybe I can save someone else's father, someone else's son." "I'm sorry about your dad," I said, and meant it. "He would have liked you," she said. "He always said the most interesting people were the ones who were scared but did the brave thing anyway." "I'm not brave, Ava. You're here, aren't you? You could have ignored the doctors, lived in denial. Instead, you're facing it head on. That's brave." The night before surgery, she worked late and stopped by my room around 10 p.m. I was staring out the window at the city lights, trying not to think about the fact that this might be my last night to see them. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Too much on my mind." She pulled up a chair next to my bed. "Want to talk about it?" And somehow, I found myself telling her things I'd never told anyone, about how I'd built my empire as a way to prove I was worth something after growing up poor. About how I had billions of dollars, but no one to leave them to. About how I was afraid that if I died tomorrow, the only thing people would remember was my net worth. "That's not true," she said softly. "What's not true?" "That money is all you're worth. I've been working with cardiac patients for 8 years, and I've seen how people face their mortality. The ones who are only about money, they're angry, bitter, demanding. They treat the staff like servants and act like they can negotiate with death." She looked at me directly. "You're not like that. You say please and thank you. You ask about my day. Yesterday, you gave your dessert to the old man in the next room because you heard him telling his daughter he missed chocolate cake. You think I didn't notice, but I notice everything. There was something in her voice, something that made my heart race, and not because of the medical condition. Bella, I said. Yes? If I don't make it through tomorrow, you will. If I don't, I continued, I want you to know that meeting you was the best thing that happened to me in this whole mess. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached over and took my hand. Alexander, you're going to make it through tomorrow. And when you do, you're going to have to figure out what comes next. What do you think should come next? She squeezed my hand. I think you should live. Really live. Not just exist in boardrooms and penthouses, but live, The surgery was supposed to take 6 hours. It took 9. I remember going under anesthesia thinking about Bella's hand in mine. I remember the bright lights and Dr. Morrison's calm voice saying everything would be fine. After that, nothing until I woke up in recovery with tubes in my chest and the most beautiful face I'd ever seen hovering over me. Hey there, sleepyhead, Bella said, and I knew from her smile that I was going to be okay. Recovery was brutal. 3 weeks in the hospital, learning to walk again, learning to breathe without machines. But Bella was there for every step. She worked extra shifts to be assigned to my care, stayed late to help with physical therapy, brought me books when I got bored and real coffee when I complained about the hospital stuff. You know, I said one afternoon while she was checking my incision, when I get out of here, I'd like to take you to dinner, somewhere with actual seasoning. She paused in her examination. Alexander. I know. You probably have rules about dating patients. It's not about rules. She sat down on the edge of my bed. It's about reality. You're a billionaire. You live in a world I can't even imagine. In 3 weeks, you'll go back to your penthouse and your board meetings and your charity galas, and I'll just be a nice memory of the nurse who helped you through a tough time. You don't know me very well if you think that's true. Don't I? Tell me, Alexander, when was the last time you dated someone who wasn't wealthy? Someone who works for a living instead of managing investments? I opened my mouth to argue and realized she was right. Every woman I'd been with had been from my world. Socialites, heiresses, CEOs, women who understood the rules of my life because they lived by the same ones. That doesn't mean... It means we're from different worlds, she said gently. And sometimes, no matter how much you care about someone, different worlds don't mix. But I was stubborn, remember? And I was also falling in love. When I was discharged, I sent her flowers. Bella sent them back with a note. Thank you, but please don't. I sent a car to pick her up for dinner. She didn't get in. I showed up at the hospital with coffee from her favorite shop. She accepted the coffee, but not the invitation that came with it. For 2 weeks, I tried everything I could think of to see her outside of medical necessity. And for 2 weeks, she gently but firmly kept me at arm's length. Then my world exploded. It started with a phone call from my head of security. "Mr. Stone, we have a problem." I was in my office, 70 floors above Manhattan, trying to focus on quarterly reports instead of thinking about a certain nurse with brown eyes. "What kind of problem? Marcus?" "Victoria Blackwell is back in town." The coffee cup slipped from my hand and shattered on the marble floor. Victoria Blackwell. I hadn't heard that name in 3 years, and I'd been happy to keep it that way. Victoria and I had history. We'd dated for 2 years, been engaged for 6 months, and it had ended in a spectacular explosion of betrayal, corporate espionage, and legal threats that had taken a team of lawyers 18 months to sort out. She was brilliant, beautiful, and absolutely ruthless. She was also the only person who'd ever come close to destroying me. Where is she? She bought the Meridian Hotel, paid cash, 30% over asking price. She's been making inquiries about your recent medical situation. My blood went cold. What kind of inquiries? The kind that suggests she knows exactly how vulnerable you were 6 weeks ago. And she's been asking questions about the hospital staff who treated you. I was already reaching for my jacket. "Get the car, now." "Sir, where are we going?" Manhattan Presbyterian. If Victoria is sniffing around my medical records, I need to make sure everyone who had access to them is safe. The ride to the hospital was the longest 20 minutes of my life. Victoria wasn't just vindictive. She was strategic. If she was back, it wasn't for revenge. It was for something bigger. I found Bella just finishing her shift, walking toward the parking garage with her purse slung over her shoulder. She looked tired but beautiful, and seeing her made my chest tight with something that had nothing to do with my recent surgery. "Alexander, what are you doing here?" "I need to talk to you. It's important." She glanced around the parking garage. "This isn't really the place for whatever conversation you think we need to have. Someone might be watching you. Someone dangerous." That got her attention. "What are you talking about?" I quickly explained about Victoria, about the inquiries, about my growing certainty that Bella was being targeted simply because she'd taken care of me. "That's ridiculous," Bella said when I finished. "I'm a nurse. I don't have anything anyone would want." "You have me." The words hung in the air between us. Bella stared at me, and I realized I'd just admitted something I hadn't even admitted to myself. "Alexander, I know you think we're from different worlds. I know you think this won't work, but I need you to know that I'm in love with you, and if someone wants to hurt you because of me, then you're in danger whether you want to be in my life or not." Before she could respond, my phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number. "She's lovely. It would be a shame if something happened to her. Attached was a photo of Bella walking out of the hospital, taken 5 minutes ago. I showed her the message and watched the color drain from her face. "Oh God," she whispered. "Pack a bag," I said. "You're coming home with me." "Alexander, I can't just..." "Yes, you can. Because this isn't about us or our different worlds anymore. This is about keeping you alive." That night, Bella sat in my penthouse living room, looking like she'd landed on an alien planet. She'd packed one small bag and hadn't said much during the ride up in my private elevator. "This is temporary," she said, looking out at the view of Manhattan spread below us. "As soon as you figure out how to handle this Victoria person, I go back to my life." Of course, but I was lying, and I think we both knew it. I made dinner. Well, I tried to. Turns out billionaires who usually have chefs on call aren't great at cooking actual meals. Bella eventually took over, creating something amazing out of the random ingredients in my kitchen. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" I asked, watching her move around my kitchen like she belonged there. "My grandmother. She raised me after my parents died. Said a person who couldn't feed themselves couldn't take care of anyone else." She sounds wise. She would have liked you, actually." "Really?" Bella smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her since the parking garage. She always said the measure of a man wasn't what he had, but what he was willing to give up for the people he loved. "What makes you think I'd give anything up for you?" She gestured around the kitchen, where I was standing elbow deep in dish suds because I'd insisted on cleaning up. "Billionaire washing dishes. I'm pretty sure that's not in your usual repertoire." "Oh." We ate by candlelight, and for a few hours, it was easy to forget about Victoria and threats and danger. We talked about everything: her childhood in small-town Arizona, my early days building the company, books we'd read, places we wanted to travel. "You know," I said over dessert, "this is the most normal evening I've had in years." Normal is relative. I'm eating $70 steak in a penthouse that costs more than my entire neighborhood. But it feels normal. With you, it feels normal. She was quiet for a moment. "Alexander, when this is over, when this woman is out of your life and I'm safe, what happens then? What do you want to happen?" "I want..." She stopped, shook her head. "It doesn't matter what I want. It's the only thing that matters." That night, I gave her my master bedroom and took the guest room. I lay awake listening to the sounds of another person in my space and realized this was what I'd been missing all these years. Not just companionship, but partnership. Someone who belonged in my life not because they fit the image, but because they made the life worth living. The next morning, everything changed. I woke up to my security alarm and Marcus shouting orders to someone over the phone. I grabbed a robe and ran to the living room, where Bella was standing by the window in her pajamas, looking confused and scared. "What's happening?" she asked. "I don't know." Marcus appeared from the elevator, his face grim. "Sir, we have a situation." "What kind of situation?" "Victoria Blackwell has filed an injunction against your company. She's claiming you used insider information gained through your medical treatment to make recent stock purchases, so..." "That's insane." "It gets worse. She's also filed a complaint with the nursing board, claiming Miss Martinez violated patient confidentiality by sharing your medical information with business associates." Bella went white. "But I never..." "Would never..." "I know you wouldn't," I said quickly. "This is all fabricated." "Fabricated or not," Marcus continued, "there's going to be an investigation. Miss Martinez will likely be suspended pending the outcome." "No," Bella said quietly. "No, no, no. I can't lose my license. Nursing is all I have. It's all I know." I reached for her, but she stepped away. "This is exactly what I was afraid of," she said. "Being around you means my entire life gets turned upside down." "Bella, we'll fight this. I have the best lawyers in the country." "And what happens to me while we're fighting? I can't work. I can't pay my bills. My career is destroyed because I took care of a patient." She was spiraling, and I could see the panic taking over. "I need to go," she said, heading toward the bedroom. "I need to go home and figure out how to fix this." "You're not safe at home." "I'm not safe anywhere," she snapped, turning back to face me. "Don't you see? This woman, whoever she is, she can destroy my life with paperwork. And there's nothing you can do to stop her because she's playing by different rules than you are." I wanted to argue, but Marcus interrupted. "Sir, there's more." I was almost afraid to ask. "What more?" "She's called a press conference for this afternoon. She's going to make this public." Bella sank into a chair. "I'm finished." "No, you're not." I knelt beside her chair. "Bella, look at me. You're not finished. We're going to figure this out." "How? How are we going to figure this out? She has lawyers and money and connections, and I'm just a nurse who fell for the wrong patient." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Is that what you think this is? That you fell for the wrong patient?" She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Isn't it?" Before I could answer, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Don't answer it," Marcus said. I answered it anyway. "Hello, Alexander." Victoria's voice was exactly as I remembered. Smooth, confident, with just a hint of cruelty underneath. "Victoria, what do you want?" I want to talk. Meet me for lunch. Alone. Not a chance. Oh, I think you'll change your mind. You see, I have some very interesting photographs. Your little nurse friend visiting some very questionable establishments. Accepting packages from some very questionable people. Of course, they're all fabricated, but they'll look quite convincing to the nursing board. And the DEA. My blood turned to ice. You stay away from her. Meet me for lunch. Alexander, 1 o'clock. The restaurant in the Meridian Hotel. Come alone, or your girlfriend's career becomes the least of her problems. The line went dead. I looked at Bella, who had heard enough to understand the situation. You're not going, she said. I have to. It's a trap. Obviously, it's a trap. I know, Then why would you even consider it? I took her hands in mine. Because she's threatening you, and I love you, and sometimes love means walking into traps. The restaurant at the Meridian Hotel was exactly the kind of place Victoria would choose. Expensive, elegant, full of people who would recognize me and wonder what I was doing there. I arrived 5 minutes early and was escorted to a private dining room where Victoria was already waiting. 3 years hadn't changed her much. She was still strikingly beautiful, still perfectly put together, still radiating the kind of controlled power that had once attracted me and now made my skin crawl. Alexander, she said, rising to kiss my cheek. You look well. Recovery from surgery suits you. Cut the pleasantries. Victoria, what do you want? Straight to business. I always loved that about you. She gestured for me to sit across from her. I want what should have been mine 3 years ago. Which is? Your company. Your life. Your complete and total destruction. I leaned back in my chair, still holding grudges, I see. You humiliated me, Alexander. You had me arrested at our engagement party, in front of everyone who mattered. You were selling proprietary information to my competitors. What did you expect? I expected you to handle it privately, like a gentleman. Gentlemen don't protect corporate thieves. Her smile was sharp enough to cut glass. And now you're protecting a different kind of thief. Bella isn't a thief, Isn't she? She stole you, didn't she? Seduced you while you were vulnerable and sick. Very unprofessional. You don't know what you're talking about. I know that you've made yourself vulnerable for a woman who will never fit into your world. I know that you're so besotted with this little nurse that you'll do anything to protect her, including giving me what I want. Which is? Victoria slid a folder across the table. Transfer of controlling interest in Stone Industries to Blackwell Enterprises. Sign it, and your girlfriend keeps her license, her reputation, and her freedom. I opened the folder. The documents were comprehensive, legal, and would essentially hand over everything I'd built to the woman who'd once tried to destroy me. "You're insane if you think I'll sign this." "Am I?" "Let me paint you a picture. Alexander. Tomorrow morning, the nursing board receives evidence that Isabella Martinez has been selling patient information to pharmaceutical companies. The DEA receives evidence that she's been stealing and distributing controlled substances. The IRS receives evidence that she's been hiding unreported income. All fabricated, all convincing. By the time she proves her innocence, if she can prove her innocence, her career will be over. She'll be facing federal charges, and her reputation will be destroyed. And you'll be powerless to stop any of it because you'll be too busy defending yourself against charges of insider trading. I closed the folder without signing anything. "You're making one big mistake, Victoria." "What's that?" "You think I'm the same man I was 3 years ago. You think I'm still someone who can be blackmailed and manipulated. Aren't you?" I stood up. 3 years ago, I would have signed those papers, not to save my company, but to save face, to avoid the embarrassment of a public scandal. I straightened my tie, but that was before I learned the difference between living and just existing. "Sit down, Alexander. We're not finished." "Yes, we are." I walked to the door, then turned back. "Victoria? The woman you're threatening? She's braver than both of us. And if you think I'm going to let you destroy her to get back at me, you really don't know me at all anymore." I left her sitting there, furious and beautiful and dangerous as ever. When I got back to the penthouse, Bella was pacing the living room like a caged animal. "How did it go?" she asked. I told her everything. The demands, the threats, the fabricated evidence. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. "Sign the papers," she said finally. "What?" "Give her your company, sign the papers." "Bella, that company is my life's work. And I'm just a nurse you've known for 2 months." She turned to face me. "Alexander, I can't let you lose everything because of me. You're not just anything to me. You're everything." "That's the problem," she said quietly. "I'm everything to you, but you're everything to everyone else. Your employees, your investors, the people whose pensions are tied up in your company. You can't sacrifice all of them for me. Watch me. I won't let you." We stared at each other across the living room, both stubborn, both scared, both desperately in love and completely out of our depth. "There has to be another way," I said. "What other way? She has lawyers and fabricated evidence and enough money to make it all look real. What do we have?" I thought about it. What did we have? Then it hit me. "We have the truth," I said slowly. "The truth doesn't matter if no one believes it. But what if we could prove she's lying? What if we could turn this around on her? Bella looked skeptical. How? I was already reaching for my phone. Marcus, I need you to put together a team, and I need you to call Jeremy Collins. The investigative journalist? The very same. Tell him I have the story of the year for him. Jeremy Collins had been trying to get an exclusive interview with me for 5 years. He was thorough, ethical, and had a reputation for exposing corporate corruption that had made him plenty of enemies and won him a Pulitzer Prize. He arrived at my penthouse 2 hours later with a digital recorder, a notebook, and the kind of hungry expression that told me he knew this was going to be big. Mr. Stone, he said, shaking my hand. I have to admit, I'm surprised you called. I need to tell you a story, Jeremy, but first, I need your word that you'll investigate every claim I make. Don't take my word for anything. Verify everything. That's what I do. I introduced him to Bella, explained our relationship and the current situation. Then I told him about Victoria, not just the recent threats, but the whole story. The corporate espionage 3 years ago, the evidence we'd never made public, the network of contacts she'd built in various regulatory agencies. You're alleging that Victoria Blackwell has connections inside the nursing board, the DEA, and the SEC? I'm not alleging anything. I'm asking you to investigate whether someone with her background and resources could orchestrate the kind of coordinated attack she's threatening. Jeremy's eyes lit up. This was exactly the kind of corruption investigation he lived for. What do you need from me? He asked. Time, I said. And publicity. Victoria's counting on being able to destroy Bella quietly, before anyone asks questions. But if this becomes a public story, then any evidence against Miss Martinez gets scrutinized by the press, not just regulatory boards. Exactly. Jeremy turned to Bella. Miss Martinez, are you willing to go public with this? It means your personal life becomes front-page news. Bella was quiet for a moment. A week ago, my biggest worry was whether Mr. Stone would ask me out again. Now I'm sitting in a penthouse planning media strategy to fight a billionaire who wants to destroy my life. So yes, I think I can handle a little publicity. I fell in love with her all over again. Jeremy left with enough material to keep him busy for weeks. But Victoria wasn't going to wait weeks. The next morning, the story broke in the financial press. Nursing board investigates insider trading claims. Bella's name was in the second paragraph. By afternoon, reporters were camped outside her apartment building and the hospital. Her supervisor called to inform her that she was suspended pending investigation. Her photo was on the evening news. I can't do this, she said, staring at the television coverage from my living room. I can't have my life dissected by strangers. It's temporary, I said, though I wasn't sure I believed it. Is it? Even if we prove I'm innocent, even if this Victoria person is exposed, I'll always be the nurse who was involved in a billionaire scandal. That's how people will remember me. She was right. and we both knew it. That night, as we lay in separate bedrooms in my too large penthouse, I stared at the ceiling and wondered if I was being selfish. Bella had been perfectly happy before I stumbled into her life. She'd had a career she loved, a quiet life, a world that made sense, and now she was suspended from work, hiding from reporters, and watching her reputation get destroyed on national television. Maybe she would be better off without me. The thought had barely formed when my security alarm went off. I grabbed a robe and ran to the main room, where Marcus was already coordinating with building security over his radio. What's happening? Someone bypassed the elevator security. They're on their way up. How is that possible? The only way to override that system is with building administrator access, which meant Victoria had bought more than just the Meridian Hotel. She'd been acquiring properties all over Manhattan, including, apparently, mine. Get Bella, I told Marcus. Now. But when we reached the master bedroom, it was empty. The window was open, and a professional rappelling line hung from the sill. They'd taken her. My phone buzzed with a text message. Different unknown number this time. Warehouse 47, Red Hook. Come alone. You have 1 hour. I was already moving toward my closet, pulling on clothes and shoes. Sir, Marcus said, we need to call the police. And tell them what? That my ex-girlfriend kidnapped my current girlfriend as part of a corporate takeover? By the time we convince them this is real, Bella could be dead. Then we go in with tactical support. I can have a team ready in 20 minutes, won't you? She said, come alone. She also said you had an hour. That's enough time to put together a proper rescue operation. I stopped and looked at him. Marcus had been my head of security for 8 years. He was former military, trained in hostage situations, and probably right about the tactical approach. But I couldn't risk it. I'm going alone. Sir. Marcus, if something happens to me, I need you to make sure Jeremy Collins gets the full story. Everything. The evidence about Victoria, the financial records, all of it. Nothing's going to happen to you. If it does, make sure Bella knows. I stopped. What did I want her to know? Make sure she knows that loving her was the best decision I ever made, huh? Warehouse 47 was exactly the kind of place you'd expect for a climactic confrontation. Industrial, isolated, with plenty of shadows and places to hide. I parked outside and checked my phone. 58 minutes. I was early, The main door was unlocked, which should have been my first clue that this was more complicated than a simple hostage exchange. Inside, the warehouse was mostly empty except for some old shipping containers and industrial equipment. And in the center, under a single spotlight, Victoria waited. She wasn't alone. Bella was there, tied to a chair, conscious but clearly drugged, Around the perimeter of the space, I counted at least 6 men in tactical gear. "Right on time," Victoria said. "Though I'm disappointed you didn't bring the cavalry." "Let her go, Victoria. This is between us." "Oh, but it's not just between us anymore, is it? You see, your little nurse has become quite the problem for me. Do you know what she did yesterday while you were busy playing hero?" I didn't answer. "She called Jeremy Collins herself, gave him additional information about my business practices. Very thorough. Your girlfriend. Very..." I looked at Bella, who was watching me with eyes that were alert despite whatever they'd given her. "What do you want, Victoria?" "The same thing I wanted yesterday. Your company, but now I also want her gone." "Gone?" "Isabella Martinez is going to disappear. Alexander. Tragic. Really. Young woman, overwhelmed by scandal, takes her own life. Very sad. Very final." "You're insane." "I'm practical. Dead people can't give interviews to investigative journalists, so..." The men around the perimeter shifted, and I realized this had never been about negotiation. Victoria had brought me here to witness Bella's death, and probably to die alongside her. But Victoria had made one critical error. She'd assumed I was still the man I'd been 3 years ago, someone who negotiated from boardrooms and fought battles with lawyers and leverage. She'd forgotten that I'd grown up poor, that I'd built my first company working 18-hour days in a garage, that I'd learned to fight long before I'd learned to buy my way out of problems. "Before you kill us," I said, buying time and trying to position myself closer to Bella, "I'm curious about something." "What's that?" "How did you know about my surgery? That information was classified." Victoria smiled. "You always were too trusting, Alexander. Dr. Morrison has been feeding me information about your condition for months." That hit me like a physical blow. Dr. Morrison, the cardiac surgeon who'd saved my life, had been working for Victoria. "The heart defect was real," Victoria continued, "but the timing of your diagnosis was..." Amazing how a little pressure in the right places can accelerate a medical timeline. Which meant Victoria had been orchestrating this from the beginning. She'd known I was vulnerable, known I'd need surgery, probably even known which nurses would be working my case. "How long have you been planning this?" "Since the day you had me arrested. Did you think I would just disappear? Accept defeat gracefully?" She gestured around the warehouse. "This took 3 years to set up. Alexander, 3 years of careful planning, strategic investments, and patient waiting. And if I sign over the company now? Then your girlfriend dies quickly instead of slowly. A mercy killing, if you will." I was close enough now, 10 feet from Bella's chair, close enough to reach her if I moved fast enough. But 6 armed men were a lot to handle, even for someone who'd grown up fighting. That's when I heard the sound that changed everything. Sirens. Multiple vehicles, getting closer. Victoria heard them too. You brought the police. No, I didn't. But someone had. The warehouse doors burst open, and tactical officers poured in from 3 different entrances. In the chaos, I did the only thing I could think of. I dove toward Bella's chair, covering her body with mine as gunfire erupted around us. The whole thing was over in less than 2 minutes. When the smoke cleared, 4 of Victoria's men were down, 2 were in custody, and Victoria herself was bleeding from a shoulder wound, but alive. And standing over us, cutting Bella's restraints with tactical precision, was Marcus. I thought I told you to come alone, I said. You did, but Miss Martinez called me as soon as you left. I looked at Bella, who was flexing her wrists where the ropes had been. How did you call anyone? You were drugged. She smiled weakly. I wasn't as drugged as I pretended to be, and I may have palmed your backup phone before they took me. My backup phone? The one you keep in the kitchen drawer. I saw you use it yesterday when your main phone was charging. Marcus helped us both to our feet. She called me 20 minutes after you left, gave me the location, and told me to bring everyone. How did you know where we were? Bella's smile got stronger. Because I wasn't unconscious when they brought me here. I heard everything Victoria said, including her whole villain monologue about her 3-year plan. I stared at her. You were awake for all of that? I was awake for most of it. The drugs were real, but not as strong as she thought, and I figured if you were going to do something stupidly heroic, I should probably try to help. You could have been killed. So could you, but we weren't. Around us, paramedics were treating wounds and police were taking statements. Victoria was loaded into an ambulance under police custody, still beautiful, still defiant, still absolutely furious that her perfect plan had failed. Is it over? Bella asked as we watched the ambulance drive away. It's over. Shh. What happens now? I looked at her, rumpled, exhausted, still recovering from being drugged and tied up, and somehow more beautiful than ever. Now, I said, we figure out what comes next. The media circus lasted for 3 weeks. Jeremy Collins published a series of articles that exposed not just Victoria's schemes against us, but an entire network of corporate corruption that reached into regulatory agencies, medical institutions, and financial markets. Victoria was charged with kidnapping, conspiracy, attempted murder, and about 12 different financial crimes. Dr. Morrison was arrested for accepting bribes and violating patient confidentiality. The nursing board not only cleared Bella of all charges, but issued a public apology for the investigation. And somehow, in the middle of all the chaos, Bella and I found our rhythm. She moved into the penthouse, officially this time. Not because she was hiding from threats, but because we both realized we didn't want to live separately anymore. "You know," she said one evening as we cooked dinner together, a routine we'd somehow fallen into. "A year ago, if someone had told me I'd be living in a penthouse with a billionaire, I would have laughed at them. What would you have done instead?" "Probably kept working at the hospital until I was 65, maybe taken a vacation once a year, maybe adopted a cat." "You can still adopt a cat." "Can I?" "Bella, you can do anything you want. The world is wide open now." She was quiet for a moment, stirring the sauce she was making. "What I want might surprise you. Try me." "I want to go back to work." That did surprise me. "At the hospital?" "Not exactly. I've been thinking about what you said, about really living instead of just existing. And I realized that nursing wasn't just my job, it was my calling. But maybe I can do it differently now." "What do you mean?" She turned to face me. "I want to start a foundation, free cardiac care for people who can't afford it. Mobile units, community outreach, prevention programs. I want to save the people who fall through the cracks." "That's a big dream." "I have big resources now, access to them, anyway." I set down my knife and really looked at her. "You want to use my money to start a medical foundation. I want to use our money to save lives." "Our money." I liked the sound of that. "There's just one condition," I said. "What's that?" "I want to help. Not just with funding, but with the actual work. I want to be involved." "You want to work in a medical foundation?" "I want to work with you, whatever that looks like." 6 months later, the Isabella Martinez Foundation for Cardiac Care opened its first mobile unit in Queens. Bella ran the medical operations, and I handled the business side. We worked 16-hour days, fought about budgets and protocols, and fell into bed exhausted every night. It was the happiest I'd ever been. "You know," Bella said one evening as we reviewed patient statistics from our first month of operation, "this is not what I pictured when I imagined dating a billionaire." "What did you picture?" "Charity galas, fancy restaurants, maybe a yacht or two." "We can still do those things." "Do you want to?" I looked around our shared office, papers everywhere, coffee cups on every surface. Bella with her hair pulled back and reading glasses perched on her nose as she went through medical charts. "Not really," I said. "Good, because I think this is better." "Better than yachts?" "Better than anything." That night, as we drove home through the city, I made a decision I'd been thinking about for weeks. "Bella." "Hmm?" "There's something I want to ask you." "What's that?" I pulled over, which was probably not the most romantic setting for what I was about to do, but I couldn't wait another minute. Marry me." She stared at me. "What?" "I know it's soon, and I know we're still figuring things out, but I also know that I want to spend the rest of my life working beside you, fighting with you, building something meaningful with you." Alexander. I love you, Bella, not because you're beautiful, though you are, not because you saved my life, though you did. I love you because you made me remember who I wanted to be. She was quiet for a long time, long enough that I started to worry I'd misread everything. "Yes," she said finally. "Yes?" "Yes, I'll marry you, but I have conditions." "Name them." "No prenup, though." "Done." "I keep my name." "Done." "And if you ever go back to being the kind of man who thinks money solves everything, I'm keeping half of everything when I divorce you." I laughed. "Deal." We were married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the hospital where we'd met. Jeremy Collins was there, along with Marcus and about 50 doctors, nurses, and foundation staff. Dr. Morrison was notably absent, serving his prison sentence. Victoria sent a card from federal prison. It just said, "Congratulations." Bella framed it and hung it in our office as a reminder of how far we'd come. 5 years later, the foundation operates in 12 cities and has saved over 10,000 lives. Bella still works in the field 3 days a week, and I still handle the business operations. We fight about expansion plans and hiring decisions and whether we need a bigger office. We also fight about normal things, like whose turn it is to do laundry and whether we should get a dog to go with the 3 cats Bella eventually adopted. Last month, Bella came home from a particularly difficult day in our Bronx clinic and collapsed onto our couch. "Rough day?" I asked. "We lost one." She never got used to losing patients. It was one of the things I loved most about her. "Tell me about it." So she did. She told me about the 70-year-old man who'd been ignoring chest pains for months because he couldn't afford to miss work. How they'd gotten him to the hospital too late. How his daughter had cried in the waiting room. "We need more outreach," she said when she finished the story. "But more education programs. People need to know that chest pain isn't something you ignore." "We'll figure it out." "Will we? Sometimes it feels like we're trying to empty the ocean with a teaspoon." I sat down beside her and pulled her into my arms. "Remember what you told me that first night in the hospital? That statistics don't account for stubbornness?" "Yeah, we're very stubborn people, Bella, and we've got time." She looked up at me. "Do you ever miss it? The old life? The simplicity of just making money? Do you miss the old life? Just being a nurse in one hospital?" "Never." "Then no, I don't miss it." That night, as we lay in bed in our penthouse that had somehow become a real home, Bella said something that made me think about the question that started this whole story. Alexander? Yeah? If I was hanging from a warehouse ceiling and you had 60 seconds to save me, what would you do? I thought about it, really thought about it. I'd find a way to give us 90 seconds. She laughed. That's not how it works. It is with me. I'd find a way to change the rules. And if you couldn't change the rules, then I'd make sure I was hanging right next to you. That's very romantic and completely impractical. Most of the best things are. 6 months after that conversation, Bella was diagnosed with cancer. The doctors caught it early, stage 1 breast cancer, highly treatable, excellent prognosis. But suddenly we were back in hospital rooms, back to talking about statistics and surgical procedures and uncertain outcomes. This is ironic, Bella said as we sat in the oncologist's office, listening to treatment options. The nurse becomes the patient. How are you so calm about this? Because I know something you don't know. What's that? I know that you're going to take care of me the same way I took care of you. And I know that we're both too stubborn to let cancer win. She was right, of course. The treatment was brutal. 6 months of chemotherapy, followed by surgery, followed by radiation. Bella lost her hair and 20 pounds, and her patience with pretty much everything. But she didn't lose her determination. She continued working part-time throughout treatment, insisting that helping other people was the best medicine for her own situation. She updated the foundation's protocols based on her experience as a patient. She started a support group for medical professionals dealing with serious illness. And she never, not once, asked, "Why me?" "Because," she said when I asked her about it, "why not me? Cancer doesn't care if you're a good person, or if you help people, or if you're in love. It just is. So you deal with it, The day she finished her last radiation treatment, we drove to our first mobile unit in Queens and worked a full shift. Bella examined patients. I handled intake paperwork. And by the end of the day, we'd helped 37 people. "Good day," she said as we packed up. "Great day, That night, she stood in front of our bathroom mirror, looking at the short, dark hair that was just starting to grow back. "I look different," she said. "You look beautiful." "I look like someone who survived something." "You look like someone who survived something and came back stronger." She turned to face me. "Alexander?" "Yeah?" "Thank you." "For what?" "For changing the rules, for giving us more time." We gave each other more time. "No," she said, stepping into my arms. "You changed my life from the moment you asked me to draw your blood. You just took a while to figure out how to ask for what you wanted." What did I want? A partner, someone to build something meaningful with, someone to love who would love you back. "What do you want?" I asked. "I want to keep building. I want to save more lives. I want to fight with you about foundation policies for the next 50 years. "Just 50? I'm being conservative. Today is our 7-year wedding anniversary. Bella has been cancer-free for 2 years. The foundation now operates in 18 cities and has saved over 50,000 lives. This morning, over coffee and the newspaper, Bella said something that brought us full circle. "I've been thinking about that warehouse," she said. "What about it?" "What if I hadn't called Marcus? What if you'd actually gone in alone? I would have figured something out." "Would you?" I thought about it, really thought about it. You know what I think would have happened? "What?" "I think you would have saved us both. You were awake. You were alert. You were already planning. You would have found a way." I was tied to a chair, Alexander. You were also the person who noticed my backup phone, who called for help, who stayed conscious despite being drugged. You saved us, Bella. Not me, not Marcus, not the police. You. She smiled. We saved each other. Yeah, we did. This afternoon, we're going to the Bronx Clinic to check on a new program Bella developed for treating underinsured patients. Tonight, we're having dinner at home, something simple, cooked together, eaten while we plan next week's schedule. Tomorrow, we'll do it all again. And if someone asked me now what I'd do if the person I loved most was hanging from a warehouse ceiling with 60 seconds left, I'd tell them the truth. I'd trust her to find her own way down, and I'd be waiting with my arms open when she did. Because that's what love really is, not rescuing each other, but giving each other the strength to rescue yourselves. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you find someone stubborn enough to change the rules alongside you. The question isn't what you do with 60 seconds to save someone you love. The question is, what will you do with all the time you have left to love them while they're here?